is Nichol Spohr for Simon Says Stamp with the July edition of Making the Cut. Making the Cut is my monthly series here at Simon Says Stamp where we talk about all things die cutting. If you enjoy die cutting, I highly suggest you like and subscribe. Now let's get to creating this fun, interactive Magic Iris tropical scene card. We are going to start today with this Magic Iris add-on panel. I've gone ahead and die cut this from some Simon Says Stamp green apple cardstock, and then we are going to be using these Lawn Fawn tropical stencils to add a background to this Magic Iris panel. So I am going to be using the Magic Iris tropical add-on, but I really want my background panel to convey that tropical feeling as well. And stencils are a fantastic way to do this without adding extra bulk. The Magic Iris component tends to be a little bulkier anyway. Most interactive cards do have a little bit more of a bulk type issue, so I love when I can use some stencils to help convey my scene very easily. I am using some Distress Oxide inks on the colored cardstock. The great thing about the oxide inks is that they have some pigment ink in them, meaning the ink is not going to absorb into the cardstock like a dye ink would. Instead, it's going to kind of sit on top and it's going to retain that vibrant color. I am using the Mowed Lawn and Lucky Clover inks for this first pass. This is a two-step stencil set. The first one, you get the majority of your tropical leaves, and then you can see how the second stencil fills in those empty areas. This is great if you want to switch some color. I am going to switch now to the Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink for the rest of my tropical leaves. Something else to note, when I die cut my Magic Iris add-on panel, I kept the circle in the center. I taped it to the back of the panel with a little post-it tape or repositionable adhesive so that it has the same pattern as the front. When we open up the Magic Iris, you'll be able to see that with the image we're going to place inside. Next up, we have this great Tropical Leaves add-on. This is from the recent Lawn Fawn release. I have die cut this piece from some green apple cardstock as well. This is the Simon Says Stamp green apple cardstock. We're going to ink the edges of this with the Lucky Clover ink and then Rustic Wilderness to give it a little bit more texture and depth and dimension. This is awesome. It's a fantastic addition. It creates a darling little frame. You can use it with or without the Magic Iris. We are going to be creating that interactive element today, but you could just as easily use it as a frame. And it is really, really cute. I have some other ideas on how to use it more as just a frame for critters popping out of the center or whatever, and not really as an interactive element. Now, when this die cut, it has lots of little parts and pieces that didn't pop out when I die cut it because they're just kind of little. If you take a little roller of some sort, I like the Spellbinders Toolin one, you can remove most of those really easily. They do die cut all the way, they just kind of stick in that section. So there is the front part of our frame. Here is the little tool I'm going to use to help remove anything stuck in. You can also use the stylus tip or the little piercing tip, I guess, to poke those out if they won't come out easily. Now I want to go ahead and assemble what is going to be on the inside of the Magic Iris. In this case, because this is a Making the Cut series, we aren't going to include a stamped image inside, but we're going to include a die cut image inside. So I have my white top fold card base. I am going to use my frame as a guide to adhere my circle to the center of my card base. This is also going to eliminate any extra layers as far as the background of the card. I am not going to secure the frame yet. I just want to secure this inside circle piece. And then for our monkey here, This is kind of, I'm piecing together a couple of different picture book dies from Simon Says Stamp. We will be using the picture book monkey and the picture book sweet cat. I picked the cat because I thought it would be fun if the monkey had a tail, and the picture book monkey actually does not have a tail. So we're going to use the tail from the sweet cat image. I want to have my monkey kind of non-traditional, peeking down, like hanging down from a vine or something to that effect. So he's going to be hanging upside down for a little added interest here today. I want to lay him out before I go ahead and glue him in place so that everything looks like it's going to fit. And I want to make sure that nothing on him is sticking up very high, because that will inhibit the magic iris mechanism from working. However, he is fairly flat, so there should not be any issue with that. So if you are afraid of using a magic iris because of that, you definitely don't have to be. Just kind of make sure that whatever you choose to use is more on the flat side. So we are going to glue now the pieces to our picture book monkey in place. The picture book images die cuts from Simon continue to be some of my very favorite. They can be used in so many fun ways. Our picture book monkey today was die cut from a combination of Lawn Fawn vanilla malt and chocolate bar cardstock. And we're going to assemble him first. Any extra embellishing as far as shading we can do later on. Once we get the ears added, I think he looks really, really cute. And then using the tail, I think, is just a really fun way to customize the image. Kind of want to see how much of this I want to use, which end I want to use, all of that good stuff. And then we're just going to glue that in place. Kind of like it's wrapped around and the end is hanging down, is what I was imagining. We're going to use a little R00 Copic marker for the cheeks on our monkey. And I'm going to use a black gel pen for the eyes. So instead of die cutting the face from black cardstock and inlaying those teeny tiny pieces, I really just glued them in place and then used a black marker to color over them. You could also use Nuvo crystal drops in ebony black or something like that. I definitely probably would not use anything very dimensional since this is an interactive design. On the pieces for the magic iris, there are 3 of these interactive pieces. These are what create the magic iris and open up. I'm just taking my blending brush and adding a little color to these. They are not actually going to have any stenciling on them. If you wanted to and get really technical, you could try to line them up and stencil them to match, but instead I just wanted to add a little bit of shading to the edges of this because really they open up and they're not, I think they look good just like this. Then you place them in your ring. We need 3 of these magic iris rings. On one of the rings you will die cut the little spaces, the one that we're using right now. And then we simply place those pieces inside of the ring, lining up the center of those with the center of the donut ring die. And then you place a mini glue dot on the little X. You may have noticed when I was inking these pieces, I kept the ink away from that area. That was on purpose. I have found that if you ink over that, it's a little bit harder to get the glue dot to stick. Then you place a solid ring on top. I'm flipping the whole thing over, and from that little rectangle die cut notch you can see there, or a little stitched notch, I'm placing some strong adhesive. I'm using double-sided adhesive. And I'm going to peel those up. We have 3 of these tabs. We are going to place one at each of those notches, and then we'll flip our magic iris back over. On the front, we want to adhere our little pull tab mechanism. I will tell you, I use the double-sided adhesive but I did go back and add liquid adhesive. I did not do that on camera to make sure it was super secure because I don't want that part falling apart. Then, without putting any adhesive, you place the last ring on top and you put adhesive on those tabs again. These tabs are going to wrap around and hold that third ring in place. You want to make sure your rings are all lined up together perfectly, and then you want to wrap that around. Now it's not going to go all the way to the center, but it should kind of come close to that stitching line. You want it to be snug, but not so tight that it won't work. And then you simply move the lever up and down to make it work. I find the more you use the Magic Iris element, the easier it works in the finished card. Now for the Magic Iris add-on panel, so this background panel we stenciled, there actually is a little tab that's straight. I die cut that from some Noble Fur cardstock and adhered it right to the tab and lined it up. Then you can put glue all the way around the top of your Magic Iris and place the panel on top to disguise the interactive mechanism. I put an acrylic block on top to help hold that flat while the glue dries. Now, while I put glue all the way around the top of the Magic Iris, when we attach this whole panel to our card base, we cannot put glue everywhere or the Magic Iris won't work. And I will show you that here in just a second. Instead, we want to put adhesive just where those tabs that wrap around go. In fact, I'm going to use the double-sided adhesive again. But because there's so many layers of the Magic Iris, I am going to use foam adhesive squares around the rest of the panel so that it lays nice and flush and it doesn't kind of lay wonky on my background. This raises the entire panel up, plus gives lots of room for our Magic Iris. The Magic Iris will be secured to our card background with those little strips there on the actual mechanism. You want to make sure too that you're not putting foam adhesive anywhere that might inhibit the movement of our lever, so kind of anywhere along the right side of the card. We're going to pull off the backing paper from our foam adhesive squares and our double-sided tape. And then I'm going to open my Magic Iris, line it up with our background, and press that in place. So cute. It's just such a fun little tropical scene. Now it's time for finishing details and to bring it all together. So I have die cut some of the tropical flowers and leaves from the Magic Iris Tropical Leaves add-on. So this is the same set that the frame comes from. And I'm actually using these Altenew detail blending brushes with some Distress Oxide inks to add a little more texture to my flowers. So for the orange flowers, we're using Spiced Marmalade. For the yellow flowers, we're using Wild Honey. And for the pink flowers, we're using Kitsch Flamingo. I love how small these detail brushes are. This is the first time I've used them. They are amazing for getting small detail. These flowers are fairly small, so if you're looking for something to be able to add a little bit of detail to your small die cuts, these are incredible. I've got my tropical flowers. For the extra leaves, I did die cut those from some gold metallic Lawn Fawn cardstock. I thought that would be a nice addition to our scene. Now originally I did die cut the HOORAY that we're using for our sentiment from the gold metallic, but I didn't feel like it showed up quite as well as I would like. So I'm actually going to die cut that again from black cardstock and white to do a little layered design, which is what you're going to see in the finished card. Actually, I think I misspoke. I used mustard seed for the yellow flowers and wild honey for the center of the flowers. Cardstock colors used, we have Canary, I think that's what it's called. I'm probably saying it wrong. I've got PEONY from Hero Arts, that's our pink, Apricot from Fawn. And then I want to make sure and tell you right. It is Hero Canary cardstock. I was correct about that. And then Fawn Sunflower for the rest of the flower. On a scrap of Noble Fur cardstock, I am going to stamp Bananas for You from the Simon Says Stamp Punny Animals stamp set. I love that this stamp set works with the picture book dies, especially. There's a lot of those that really coordinate back to the amazing picture book dies. I'm going to stamp that with clear embossing ink, heat emboss with white embossing powder, and then we will die cut this with my favorite sentiment labels dies. I cannot craft without these. They are fantastic for creating perfect sentiment strips. So I'm going to use the smallest one from this set to die cut Bananas for You. I will line it up with one side, flip it around, and die cut the second side. I did that part off camera to save a little time today. Then I have my Simon Says Stamp HOORAY die cut from both white and black cardstock. When I adhere the black to the white, I am going to slightly shift it so that we have a little bit of a white shadow. I like that the white kind of ties into the white embossing of Bananas for You, as well as the white around the perimeter of the card. I think it really makes the HOORAY show up well. We're going to glue that down, and then we will glue down our flowers that add that nice punch of color around our frame. I'm just adding now the glue to the back of the black. I'm using the fine tip nozzle of the Bear Glue here. I love it. And then we will simply glue the rest of our sentiment down and add our sentiment strip with a little foam adhesive. I wanted the sentiment to be nice and prominent, but yet still be part of the design. Or not detract away from the design, I guess I should say. I'm using the acrylic blocks to help hold things flat while liquid glue dries. And here's that foam adhesive for my sentiment strip. And it fits right between the H and the Y on HOORAY. Now when we adhere the flowers to the frame, we want to make sure that they are not on any of the interactive elements. So I'm going to glue those in place just kind of around this tropical magic iris out-on frame. We've got little gold leaves in a couple different styles. I didn't even pop out the circles on the leaves. I kind of liked them left in place, so I made sure and put adhesive all over the back so that they won't move. And then we're just going to glue everything down, and I'm going to keep putting acrylic blocks on top, something nice and heavy to hold them down, hold them flat while the glue dries. We're going to have a trio of flowers by this sentiment over here on the right side, and then I had laid out the flowers a little higher when I was just laying them out up there on the top left. I'm going to move those down more to the side. You could even add more around the perimeter of the frame if you wanted to. It's completely up to you how much or little you want to add. I just wanted a little bit of pop of color for this interactive frame. So let's add a couple of gold leaves right here. And then I did add 3 flowers of our tropical flowers. Looks like they're hibiscus or something. And then we're adding the 2 flowers over here on the left side. And again, you can add as many or as few flowers as you want. Now that we have all of our embellishing done, I am going to take some markers and add a little bit of shading to our monkey. I think it will make him tie into the rest of our card. Our background has shading, our frame has shading, and so do our flowers. So I felt like we should take some Copic markers and add just a little bit to him. Not a lot going on here. A little E40 and a blender for the face, just with that R00 of his cheeks. And then we're going to use E59 and 57 for the darker brown parts. You could definitely do this before you add it to your card if you're afraid of getting those colors maybe on the background or whatever. I decided to live on the edge, I guess, and go ahead and do it after I had adhered him. I wasn't exactly sure how much shading I was really going to need, and I wanted to kind of gauge that upon the finished card design. We'll add a little texture. We want to make sure and do all of our monkey. I do think adding a little shading to him gives him a little bit more character. Once we have that all done, I am going to show you the interactive part of this. So the card is so cute and fun. You get it. It has this great little circle, it has the little tab with the arrow, showing you that the card does something, showing the recipient that the card does something. And when you open it, it reveals the rest of our scene and that sweet little monkey. Imagine doing this with, there's a lot of Simon Says Stamp picture book dies that would work. There's so many different critters here that would work, and you could totally use a stamped image if you prefer. I have found the more that you move it, the better that the mechanism works. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this month's Making the Cut video. Please be sure to visit the Simon Says Stamp blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.